Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Vital Statistics. I'm your host, Shemetris Vital, and this is WESLRADIO, our youth and young adult talk show. So we are continuing in on a great topic and conversation. Of course, now, as I've learned, as I put the topic together, it's a very broad topic because there's so many different aspects and so many different paths that you could take in this conversation. But we are continuing the conversation that we started a couple of weeks ago. Let them talk. Love, sex, dating, and abstaining. And joining me today is my panel of great young people. I've got D. I'm just going to use their first names. D. We got Jayha. We got Megan, Cyril, and Josh, and Michael in his absence. But we are continuing that conversation. We got a chance to hear from the ladies first at the beginning of February. Then you heard from the men, and I thought it all possible. I think it would be a great way to close out the month of March by talking with them all collectively. Still working on those opportunities to bring this conversation to different universities and different groups, because I think it's a topic and a conversation that definitely needs to be talked about. And we're always interested in having other young people join us on the platform. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my guests, and we're going to start off the conversation. I don't know if anyone has anything that they'd like to say starting off. I'm sure somebody out of the panel has something that they'd like to just start off the conversation by, before I just kind of start asking different questions. So they were challenged with at least trying to listen to the other group's conversation when they talk, but we're just going to talk openly about this conversation. So men versus women. So anybody want to kind of just start the topic, start us off, or you need me to ask a question? You know what? I'm going to let Josh has always got something to say.
I do?
Yep, you always have something to say.
Okay, well, I just like to say, just to open things up, it's, I take it as a privilege just to be able to, finally for us to be able to see this thing as a men versus women sort of discussion. I think that there are, we come in with a lot of, preconceived notions and ideas as to, what women think about men and vice versa. And I just think that now it's a good time for us to sort of layer out just some basic questions connected to our values with regards to, dating. Maybe there are some things that we've come to learn and to glean from our experiences. So, right now I'm definitely open to us, kind of starting off with a really casual discussion and then maybe going on from there to some particular subjects.
All right. Well, I'll start this off. So I was reading an article because I am preparing for a couple of events that will be taking place from the rest of this month. I did some already, and then upcoming in April, but talking about just the word and the conversation of sex with youth and young adults. And so I was reading the article, and this is what some of it said. Most families do not talk to their young adults about sex after high school, yet young adults yet young adults is where sexually vulnerability persists. Hormone and raging, the culture is steeped with messages of do what you want to feels good. As you have to do this, I'm sorry, because this is very small print. All you have to do is turn on your television or watch a movie. Sex outside of marriage is the mainstream and is no longer a question. The saturation of sex media, along with the widely successful and enchanting pornography world industry, are potent cocktails continually saturating the brain. Add to this the chemical of high and bonding of high sexual outside marriage, delaying age of marriage, which obviously we know people are not getting married as they used to. Divorce rates and acceptance of cohabitation are definitely on the rise. There's much to fight in the terms of disciplining the flesh, and the church rarely addresses the real issues that young adults face in the daily. Yet they need support to stand against the cultural norms, and it isn't easy. So my question, obviously, everyone here has accepted Christ as their personal Lord and Savior and profess to be a Christian. So in this conversation is, would you guys agree or disagree as it relates to after you got out of high school, your parents really didn't talk much about sex and you're literally left to your own devices?
So I can start. It's funny that you mentioned that article because actually yesterday on my YouTube channel, somebody commented under a pornography addiction video that I did, and they said that every 14-year-old watches pornography. And they went on to explain that they do it because they are trying to prevent themselves from not having sex. So they're kind of filling this void while waiting or abstaining or whatever the case may be. So I just explained to her, pornography and masturbation is kind of having sex with yourself. It's not physical, but it's mentally and psychologically, you're engaging and you're pleasing yourself. And then at the end of the conversation, she went on to say, I'll try to stop masturbating. And so I think it definitely begins with that conversation. I don't know how old this young person is or whoever this is, but it's like it just began with a conversation and explaining to her that this is not the right thing to do. And if parents could just be open and transparent with their children and just let them know that, you know, sex is something that is sacred. It's a sacred act. It's a gift from God, and that we should really, you know, cherish our bodies in a way that God has gifted us with.
I'll go. I would like disagree with that because I feel like it was opposite. Like when I got to college, I probably was more open and talked to my mom more about sex because I wasn't under her supervision 24/7. And like, I don't know, college is a big place where lots of things happen. So I just feel like my mom has been more transparent with me since I've like gone away and I'm not at home anymore than I was in high school.
I think it could be a mixture of both. It really depends. I feel personally, we don't properly talk about sex for the younger age group than we do the older. More parents seem to be comfortable once their kids are getting ready to go off to college or move out on their own, and that's when they feel like it's the best time to talk to their children. And we avoid talking to our kids when, you know, they're in their preteens or when they're starting to really discover themselves and things of that nature. So I can understand it, but I also think for a lot of us that the vital age of talking about sex is missed, and we wait until it's too late to talk about sex when our minds have been perverted or formed by the world on what sex is already.
Yeah, and I just have to say.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to add in just to say that it really, you know, even when it comes to that whole frontier of sexual temptation and, you know, its openness, it honestly, it begins as early as high school. I know we kind of mentioned, you know, going into college, it seems like the gate starts to open, but there are all kinds of stuff young adults deal with during that intermediate transitional phase. That's when your hormones begin to develop, and then you start developing, you know, these desires that you may not fully understand, but there's a curiosity that stems from that. And I'd say particularly in this day and age and in this culture, there's so much, you know, available to us right at our fingertips, you know, whether through a computer or through our mobile devices, through all of these, you know, apps that are so heavily driven by things that are of, you know, of visual origin, that, you know, it's easy to slip into, you know, just really, you know, being contorted by so many things that may be adults in nature, you know, but it's available to anyone, you know, anywhere and everywhere. So I think that when it comes to complex subjects like that, you know, especially when it comes to really intricate, you know, practices and engagements, even when it comes to masturbation and other things, pornography, of course, that's really something that we have to take the time to, you know, discuss, you know, between parent to child early on and start developing strategies towards avoiding that form of temptation. Because I'll be honest with you right now, especially considering, you know, I, just like any other human being, has had to overcome, you know, those types of struggles. You know, there are some things that you simply have to cut off from yourself, and you have to, you know, cut off that channel altogether. And I mean, there have been different strategies. Some people say, you know, engage in an activity that you're fond of. In our previous discussion with the men, Michael discussed, you know, at times like those, he would never allow himself to sit still. but he get engaged in producing music, you know, or another artistic activity that he likes. So, you know, sometimes you really have to work to find your niche, you know, because of course, as the old saying goes, an idle mind is the devil's playground. Bottom line.
Absolutely. And I want to throw something out at you guys, because I had a conversation with a young adult and their parent, because they had taken their sons to the doctor. They were getting ready to have physicals or whatever. And so the mom called me up and she was just like, because she had listened to the show, and she was just like, I want you to consider this in your show too. She said, you know, and I'm like, I'm very familiar with it, having raised foster children, and then having, you know, one that had a child and still helping them in the raising aspect, because obviously there's not a lot of scripture that you can really, there's not really scripture that you can really find. People have really tried to research masturbation in the physical sense in the Bible, and I'm sure all of you guys are familiar with that, right? Right. Are they at least shaking their heads? Let's see. Yeah, okay. We got at least shaking heads. At least familiar with it in that aspect. But the doctor was telling the mom, she said, you know, do you know that, you know, masturbation is kind of a natural thing? And I'm like, yes, because I obviously studied in child psychology. Now, I'm not going in here to say that this is right or wrong, but I'm just giving you guys an informational, is that they, in child psychology, haven't studied it, it's considered a normal thing for a child to begin to explore their body and all those kinds of things. And so the doctor was telling her that, you know, even though she had boys, he was like, okay, it's a normal thing. You may not agree with it in your Christian world or whatever, but one of the things that she threw out at me, and I said, well, you know, that's pretty interesting, because, you know, it's one of those toss-ups. And she said, with talking with the doctor, he said, okay, it's a natural thing, but it's really about where you take your mind in that aspect of it. And which obviously we know the idle mind's the devil's workshop, but what are you thinking about when you're doing it? What had to help you progress to get into those moods and moments and all those kinds of things? And are you bringing in additional things? Because, like, just for an example, I hope she didn't kill me, but okay, I won't use that name, but okay, young people. I remember a young person telling me, you know, it's like, well, my brother is, you know, he was 6 or 7, and, you know, he found himself playing with himself in the bathroom, you know, and it's like, okay, it's a natural discovery kind of thing. And it's like, what do you tell a child at that point in age? And then how do you keep them from going down that path later on? Because obviously as young adults, I mean, for myself, I'm just like, man, I was introduced to pornography early on. And then when I think about it, was introduced to, I guess, didn't know that's what it was, masturbation at a young age by a friend. Had no idea that that's what it was. But as time has progressed, it's like, oh, that's what that is. And so, Josh, you said the same thing about, you know, not putting yourself in those situations. And then I think Sorrel too, is your mindset of, you got to find something else to do. So saying all of that, as far as the Christian world, what are some things that you would say to another, maybe a parent or a teen or something in that aspect, that when masturbation is brought up, what do you say? Because that is one of the biggest topics right now, that is like, how do you talk about that? I'm gonna throw somebody out there, Megan, because you're the other seasoned vet on here, and you deal with kids. You work with kids all the time. You've been working with kids of all ages, so it's not something that's new to you. So I want you to speak on that a little bit.
Well, so, you know, of course, the conversation of, you know, our sexual organs do come up with children. I know that I've had parents that I have worked for, and the conversation has come up of, so how can I put this? I've worked with children, you know, from birth up until teen years. But, you know, dealing with children under the age of 5, if in studying human sexuality in the past, infants, it has been shown in studies that infants can experience orgasms, and they do tend to like hump and stuff like that. And so I know that there was one time with one of the kids that I have worked with in the past where I think he was 2 or 3 years old, and he would like, stick his hand down in his pants and, and like touch on himself or whatever. But, he didn't know. And so his mom explained to him that you don't do that in front of people. You do that in the privacy of your own room. But it's such a hard discussion to have with children, because I told her, I'm like, I don't even think telling him to do that in the privacy of his own room is even, a good standard to set, seeing as though, if you're trying to raise a Christian child who is walking in the right way, you need to explain to him the things that can come from doing things outside of what God's will is for us. So when you're masturbating, like you said, the thoughts that come with it, what other habits do you pick up along with it? So, does it just start with masturbation, then lustful thoughts, then pornography, and then, what other, perverse things can stem from it? So, honestly, I haven't really had to have the talk with children. But it is, I do know that a family that I recently worked with, they actually have gone to a Christian seminar called The Birds and the Bees that teaches them on how to talk to your younger children about sex and things of that nature, and how to have the conversation without being uncomfortable about it. So it comes with a video and a pamphlet for the children to watch, and then the parents to ask questions and to talk to the kids about, in which I told the mom that I was going to look over it because it looked kind of interesting. So, yeah.
I'd like to tie in with what Megan had to share, if you don't mind. First and foremost, starting off with the fact that she's very correct in saying that this is definitely a controversial issue. Personally, I kind of wish, it would be nice to have we, done, just a bit more research on that whole subject, a little more with regards to sexuality and masturbation before going into this. I'm sorry. But what I will say is that it definitely ties in, for me, the emphasis is on the thoughts. Because, while that practice can, it can seem innocent in its early phases, you also have to consider what else, the individual, because, it definitely, it can start as we've learned as early as infancy. It's definitely prevalent in your teens. But, what are they resorting to satisfy their pursuit of this desire? I read books from Christian writers and apologists such as C.S. Lewis, where, he just mentioned when it comes to perversion, sometimes it's not necessarily the hunger or the desire itself, it's the means towards acquiring it. So, I'm sorry. But when you consider how influences and mediums such as pornography can influence the mind of an individual to the point where the image isn't enough and it starts to influence your actions, that's where you have to start drawing the line, and that's why this is such an important subject to discuss. So that's really what I had to share. It's a matter of guarding your mind.
Okay, so my question to you guys, because obviously you can't prepare people just for the conversation of, oh, what exactly are we going to talk about? Because this is one of those things where it's a constant conversation. You guys are young adults living in the everyday world. Sex is everywhere. And just like the article that I read, and she kind of gives information on, as a Christian. So because we're talking about love, sex, dating, abstaining. So sometimes I've been asked many times, like, okay, well, what do you do since you're abstaining? What do you do? So I'm going to throw that question out at each one of you guys, and I want you guys to answer that. Just being honest, it's not, because even where I'm at, it's not easy. Some days it's like, oh my God, my mind is more there's so many more things going on, and now I'm more like, it's not about sex, it's like I want a companion or whatever. But those are things that wrestling with. So I want each person just to give their own tidbit of like advice, because if somebody's listening to this, how do you keep yourself from falling prey to the devil's tactics? That's what, we'll just put it like that, because nobody on here is married. All right, Derek.
Yeah, I don't mind starting off. So one of the things that I definitely recommend, and something that I do personally, is like, first and foremost, I identify like my own weaknesses. So you have to be honest with yourself and figure out like, what situations you're likely to basically fall into. And a really big part of it too is like prevention. So like planning for the worst case scenario. Like, what if you are alone with someone and like you do feel a certain way? Like, what do you do? And another thing too is it really helps whenever you have like an accountability partner. or just a person who's taking that walk with you. And me, for example, I have like a friend or two that they go to school in like Texas, so it's a different state. But like I'll call them weekly and we'll kind of like update each other and like talk about each other and we'll be honest. And if we feel that we need prayer, we'll pray for each other and we'll pray for each other at separate occasions as well. And the other thing too is just avoiding situations where where you know that like there's nothing good that can come from this. Like if there's somebody that's like super lustful or just really insanely attractive to you, and then being alone inside of a room with them for an extended period of time with like no supervision is just a bad idea. And like I really do think just the biggest part is being honest with yourself, knowing when you might slip up and not just like inching and just trying to play with fire basically. Like it's very general, but it's cross applicable in my opinion. That's all I have.
Yeah.
I can go. Oh. You want to go?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I completely agree with.
Everybody else use your mute.
With D. Yes, I agree with D. And in accountability, I actually taught a course on accountability today, and how we can develop that circle and that group of people that we could kind of go to. And it doesn't even have to necessarily be people that you know, but it could be like a cashier or a janitor. Like if they see your everyday routine and they're holding you accountable for maybe getting that milk that you told them you should have gotten that Monday, or if you told somebody that you had to study for this test and they say, well, did you study for that test? So in our everyday lives, who is that person or those people holding you accountable? And also, I believe that boundaries are a huge thing, whether you're in a relationship or not, because I'm single, but I know that there are guys that pursue me, but I have to say no. I had to kindly turn down a young man like a month ago because he was so nice. He was so respectful, but because of the place that I'm in my life, I had to say, I'm very focused right now and I'm sorry, but I cannot engage with getting to know another like person right now. Like I can't get to know you on an intimate level. And that's kind of my boundary. That's like my cutoff. Unless we're strictly friends. But I think boundaries and also keeping your focus. I have a motto, focus, inspire, speak, and be unique. And focus is number one, because if we lose sight of our focus, we are going to fall short. And just thinking about like going back to the conversation we had earlier, regarding the growing up and like being exposed to things at a young age, I think that if you train a child up in the way that they should go, it will make it easier. They won't be perfect, but as Shemetris told her story before, she said that at like the age of 6, her mother started teaching her about waiting and purity. So she was exposed at a young age, and I mean, she grew up and things happened, but she knew in her heart like what was right versus what is wrong. So I think that keeping that focus and knowing that you have a purpose before you're even exposed to these type of things really help as well.
I agree with what Josh said earlier about like keeping yourself busy. Because me personally, like I am always on the go 24/7. I try not to have like, this is like kind of problematic, but like I kind of like, I don't know, I don't really schedule myself a lot of free time. Like if I'm in like between class, work, clubs, whatever, by the time I like get home and I actually have like time to sit down, like I'm asleep. Like, so I would recommend to anyone younger than I, or even older, I guess, to be like, just, I don't know, keep yourself busy. Don't allow yourself to just sit around. Like if you know, like you are gonna have those thoughts, like you said, turn it into something artistic, or I don't know, just keep yourself. I don't know another word for that at the moment.
Megan, Josh.
Well, this is really a big thing on knowledge and wisdom. we know that God will keep those who desire to be kept. And I know for me, along with keeping busy and stuff, staying grounded in the word of God and definitely prayer, because I know when I have those moments where it's like, Lord, we right on the edge, you know, I go into prayer and it's like, okay, God, if we want me to stay on the right path, then I'm gonna need for you to help keep me. Because, you know, I have accountability, you know, I have friends, but, you know, sometimes everybody's not available. And so, you know, I need to, I need to be, you know, I need to be strong and grounded in God, knowing that if my friends aren't available, if I call you and you don't pick up, or, you know, if you don't have a word for me that helps keep me grounded, that I could pray, I could go to the Lord and say, hey, listen, I'm struggling with this right now. You know, I want to be kept. I want to stay strong in this. You know, I need you right now in this moment. Also, like I said, not just studying the word of God, but there have been books that have helped me. There was one particular book, it's Every Woman's Battle by Shannon Etheridge and Stephen Arterburn, however you pronounce his name, sorry. But it talks about discovering God's plan for sexual and emotional fulfillment. And there were a lot of things in the book that was pointed out that I never noticed that helped me to overcome my battle with masturbation and pornography and sexual immorality and just things of that nature. So, you know, like I said, studying your word, reading books on purity, and just gaining a better understanding, but most importantly, having that strong relationship with God will definitely bring you through those moments.
If you are just now tuning in, I may be over the halfway mark of the first segment of our show, but you are listening to Vital Statistics, our youth and young adult talk show. I'm your host, Shemetris Vital, and this week on WSL, we are continuing the conversation, but I've got the men and women's perspective all in one sitting, and we're using that topic, let them talk, love, sex, dating, and abstaining. And actually right now, just the topic of conversation that came up was with masturbation, but also then how do you keep yourself from falling prey to the devil's tactics as it relates to relationship and vulnerability with wanting to have somebody, and because we are sexual beings, what do you do? And so some of the things that have been given here as these young people have talked is like what they've had to do themselves is identify your own weaknesses. Having accountability partners is something that's very essential. So someone that you can talk to and avoid certain situations. So you've got to be honest with yourself first and foremost so that you can be, you can avoid certain temptations and situations, set boundaries, stay focused on exactly what you're doing. And obviously these young people, some are in college, some are working young adults, and some are back in college for the second time around. But nonetheless, is staying focused on that thing that you set your mind to do, understanding and knowing your purpose. So it's something that they feel like is very important, is that you really got to get to understand and know you and what is the purpose that God has intended for you. Stay busy. Don't schedule yourself too much free time. Don't allow a lot of idle time. So it's really, again, just staying focused, giving yourself multiple things to do, staying grounded in prayer, staying in the word. So that would obviously mean you've got to have a relationship with Jesus Christ so that you can have a relationship with him. And then books are also good, that anything that you are questioning, anything that you want to know, it's always good to go and find a book, because I can tell you right now, somebody has written it or put it out there. You can find things on the internet, you know, just by searching Google. So there's no reason why you have to walk this journey alone. And then the last but not least is just staying honest with yourself. Where are you at this point in time? What's going on in your life? So being honest, but always having other people to talk to and to keep you motivated and things like that. There is so much that we could talk about just in the aspects of relationship. And obviously we went down the road with masturbation because that is something that is a big talk in the Christian community, but there's not necessarily enough of it being talked about. And we started the show off of just the conversation with parents. So we're going to continue the conversation maybe on the next half, this last 10 minutes of this first half of the show. I did not get Josh's opinion, so we'll let him finish up that little topic there. And Josh, you're on mute, so you're going to have to unmute yourself.
All right. Well, one thing I'd say, and it sort of ties in with the opinions mentioned earlier, but I think transparency at the end of the day is the most critical thing. We can't undermine the power of our mouths, whether we're speaking, and requesting God's consultation, or, whether we're going to a personal coach for that type of assistance, because some things, especially when it comes to a subject as intimate, as masturbation, that's definitely something that you'll need the advice, whether you receive it through a book or maybe you have a personal coach. I would encourage, taking the time to really, be open and to speak to someone about that. I think even with prayer, that can be something that we so heavily undermine, not merely because, it's something that in our busy lives we may not get to often enough, but sometimes we aren't always convinced that prayer supersedes, even the desires that pull at us on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes there is that other part of us, called the flesh, called sin, that doesn't want to be made whole, because in essence, if we're to be honest, we may enjoy, that pleasure pursuit, and we may attempt to rationalize it, and render it as valid. I'm sorry, when the reality of the matter is it's unclean and displeasing in God's sight. So I think it really starts just with opening your mouth and admitting that there's a problem, the same way that you resolve any other issue. And that's why
that's good. I like that. So that's a good way to segue. Obviously, we'll use the biggest word that you use about being transparent. So I want to segue in the last about 10 to 11 minutes on this side of the show before we go to break. I want to go in at the concept of dating in the Christian world. If you, Megan, your face. But it's the truth, dating. What is the conversation with dating in this walk and this journey that we call the Christian world? If you're dating someone who doesn't have a personal relationship with Christ, I'm sure that happens too. When you're talking to people, is that the first thing you say? Look, don't talk to me. Don't come to me. Are you a Christian? How does the dating thing, how does it work now as a Christian, and pursuing or being the pursuit in this world? Y'all are all looking at me like you're crazy. Why is that so? Is that a bad topic? It's one of our topics: love, sex, dating.
Because dating is just, it's hard. It is hard. I can't speak for anybody else that's on here, but I know for me, it is hard because trying to walk it out the right way is very difficult, or meeting someone that's walking it out the right way. And it's not to say that there aren't people there that are trying to do it the right way, but you have more that aren't than you do that are. So, meeting someone that has that relationship with Christ, or meeting someone that that desires to be celibate. I think I've said it before, or I might have talked to you, Shemetris, but I've had a guy tell me that, he was like, you will be a great woman to marry, but he was like, I just can't test drive the car. I mean, he was like, I can't marry somebody if I can't test drive the car. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. First of all, I'm not a Ferrari or something like you. Like, I am a full-grown woman. Like, we don't test drive anything. And so I think, and honestly, I hear a lot of married people say it. I feel sorry for you younger people in this dating, because dating is just so difficult, because then you have so many people who are in different relationship statuses now. So you got, relationships, you got situationships, you got, people who are polyamorous and polygamy and all of this stuff. So it's like it's too much weeding out that's to be done. Like it's hard.
I can't contain myself. Okay, so we're talking about dating in the Christian world. Derek just unmuted himself, so let's see what Derek has to say.
All right, that was pretty funny. Like she's so right on the situationship thing. Anyway, as far as dating goes, one thing, like as far as like tips, what I usually do or recommend to like anybody else that's like in the dating world, and even like maybe non-Christian people I've talked to as well, is like know exactly what you want, have like your set standards, and then don't just like start settling just because like you're tired of like waiting for what you absolutely want. And the other thing too that I say is like have a set of things that are just non-negotiable for you, like whatever it may be, that's just that you know that if a person does XYZ, that you're just like, I'm sorry, like I can't get with that. Like they're not a bad person, but like that's something I can get with. Know like what you're interested in. And what I usually do is like I kind of have like a set of questions for myself that I have in my head basically whenever I'm talking to a person, and like based on like what I'm asking and like seeing what they're interested in, that's just like a general like troubleshooting to see like if there actually is a connection there or not. And then like if they actually are Christian, the next step is like how devoted are they to Christianity? Are they just like those cherry picking Christians, which is like they see like maybe two things in the Bible they like, but for the most part they're just very of the world? Or are they actually very devoted to their faith? And that's a really big thing for me as well. And so and also like finding somebody that's equally yoked is extremely important, because if you don't get someone that has the same level of devotion or faith as you, or at least very similar, then later in the future, whenever like you're married or something, then I mean like whenever you're trying to have a good faith walk, this person's going to keep tearing you down and saying like, oh, I don't understand why you're having faith and blah blah blah. And the other thing too I'd have to say is, dang, I think I forgot. But basically, like the biggest part of it is just don't settle. Know exactly what you want, and if you don't connect, don't be afraid to just say like, "Yeah, I'm going to cut this off." And also, like dating non-Christians is just non-negotiable. Date as though you want to get married. If that's the end goal, be like, okay, but I want my kid to be like this. If that's what you want to have. So date with the highest quality in mind. That's my advice. That's what I do.
I completely agree with that. I date intentionally, and I think that we should be more intentional about dating. Like, I ask a lot of questions, and I'm very honest and I'm open, because since I do date to marry, I'm not dating right now, but since I do, I make an account to ask questions. So, like, what generational curses lie in your family, in your bloodline? What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? What do you enjoy? Are you going to be lazy? Do you cook? Do you clean? I need to know all of these things. Like, but I mostly need to know your flaws and your weaknesses, so I know what I'm dealing with, because I'm going to be like living with you and, serving you for the rest of my life. And so with that guy that I was talking about previously, a question that I asked him was, what are your weaknesses? I just straight up asked him, and he didn't have any. He didn't quite have any flaws or weaknesses. And I was really thoroughly confused, because I can name about like 5 that I have right now. So if there's nothing wrong with you, and if there is like, you're just like this perfect person, and you can't tell me your issues, and you can't be honest with me about, the questions that I have before pursuing me, then it's not going to work. I simply have to have those set questions. And I know that people talk about a list. I kind of have a list, but I really trust God to provide exactly what is needed for my life. So I think it's also a matter of being spirit led, and you have to allow the Holy Spirit to lead you in dating, even because you don't want to end up with the wrong person and then get stuck in the soul ties and all of that. So I would just say, in dating in this day and age, be very spirit led, stay prayed up, fast, go fast, like get off social media, stop trying to compare yourself, and get right, like get your heart right before anything, because once your heart is right, God will lead you to that special person.
Okay, I got one question because I think me and Megan both had the same look. Maybe when you said, have you really asked somebody what are the generational curses in their family?
Not yet, not yet.
I was like, whoa.
It will be a question that is asked, because if I can't be honest with you, what are we together for? Wow. I need to know exactly what's going on, because the bloodline, like what's going to happen with our kids? Are we going to be broke? That's not going to happen. Not in my house. So I need to know exactly, like those things that you were addicted to. Were you a drug addict? Like I need to know, so we know what to break before we get into this union.
Okay, well, we're just being honest. So we got 2 minutes on this end of the show. Anybody have a last final comment? We're not going to finish with dating. We'll probably pick it up on the next half of this, but just as it relates to where we are right now on these last 2 minutes. Anybody? I don't see anybody.
Yeah, okay. I agree with Megan. Like, dating can't relate at all, because with the whole situationships, like I'm talking to this person, or I want you to be loyal to me, but at the same time I'm going to talk to 3 other people. Like, that's just problematic. Yeah. Doesn't make sense. And there's too much going around. I'm just like, I just want my degrees, want my money. Maybe I'm just in a selfish part of my life right now, because I'm like, oh wow, like college is coming to an end. But yeah, dating in this generation, I just look around, even at like my like younger cousins, or just like boys around me. Like I have a high school in my like near my college, and I look at some of those boys and I'm like, wow, like God help us, truly, because it's a different world. It is a different world. And when I tell my mom, like, because my mom's always like, oh, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? I'm like, nobody. Like, and I don't think she believes me when I say I'm talking to nobody, but that is so true, that I'm not talking to anybody, because I feel like nobody has their heads on straight. And it's not even just guys. I think the same for like girls as well. Like some of my friends, I'm like, what are you doing? Even sometimes I ask myself, what am I doing? So I can't really like judge anyone else, and I'm not holier than thou, but like dating right now in this generation, it's a struggle. Maybe when I'm like 22, 3.
Well said. If you are just now tuning in, we have made it to the end of the first part of our show. You are listening to Vital Statistics. This is our youth and young adult show right here on WSL Radio, Praise 1490. We are doing a joint conversation, love, sex, dating, and abstaining. Might as well say in the Christian world, because everybody here is a Christian. But we just finished talking about, just for the first part of it, dating in the Christian world. And they basically summed it up to say it's hard. But I'm going to come back from the break, and we are going to talk about dating. And my question to my young panel here is, how is social media helping or hurting the dating world, especially as a Christian? Is it helping or is it hurting? So we will be right back after this. Okay, so that's part 1. And I think I probably went over because I wasn't keeping time. So any questions, comments, concerns?
No.
No.
No?
Nope.
Are y'all ready for that question?
Yes.
Yep.
Who wants to start? Who's going to start off?
I'll start it off.
Okay. All right. Don't forget to use your mute buttons, because just in case. So just don't forget to use your mute buttons. All right, so we're going back. I'm going to start again. Mute, Jay, huh?
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
All right, and we are back. You are listening to Vital Statistics right here on WSL Radio, our youth and young adult talk show. I'm your host, Shemetris Vital, and today's conversation brings us together with a host of young people who have a lot to say. It's called Let Them Talk: Love, Sex, Dating, and Abstaining. Of course, in the Christian world, how do we do that? So we've had some really great conversation and information just on the top part of the show. But now we're going to talk about just dating in the aspect of where we're finishing it up. And I asked them before the break to think about this. How is social media helping or hurting the dating world? Because they've already said dating is hard. And you know what? At the same time, it's not for the punks that, in life, it's real. I almost said maybe we should just be courting, but how do you get to courting if you didn't date a little bit? I don't know. I don't have all the answers. So let's see what everybody else says. And Josh wants to start us off with this comment of how is social media helping or hurting us?
I'd say, at least from my perspective, social media is most definitely hurting the dating world. The reason being is because when I look at social media, when I see people, I can't say I so much see them as I may see a brand, or an interpretation of them. On social media, more often than not, you're going to see people, in their best conditions, in their best states. I'm sorry. When we have platforms like that, of course, we're going to want people to see what we desire for them to see, and nobody wants to look bad necessarily. So you're going to see, plenty of our pros, but you'll only get to know our cons if you, take the time to really know us personally. I'm the type who, before I even think of, necessarily hooking up with or dating someone, I like to scout people out and really see how they behave. Not necessarily simply in their best moments, but also, in moments where their character is really tested. How well do they demonstrate patience? Lenience. How long suffering are they with their neighbors? So for me, those are some of the questions that come along in my mind. But overall, I just say that with that whole scene, social media really isn't the best place to necessarily start conversations with people, and it's not the best place to glean an interpretation of who someone is character-wise. So that's my take on it.
I think also, it social media sets a false standard for relationships for a lot of people. We see all of these relationship goals and people become envious of other people's relationships because, one couple might have posted, "Oh, my man bought me flowers," not knowing that the reason that he bought her flowers because he beat her the night before. So, we look at all the good stuff that people post on social media and we try to mold the person that we're with to do the things that we see on social media instead of allowing people to be who they are and to let your relationship grow naturally. And also, when people are continuously posting their business, I don't know about anybody else, but I know for me, when I see people posting their business on social media about their relationship, and then all of a sudden y'all disappear, I'm like, that was all of our relationship. Where did y'all go? What happened? Y'all done broke up. Why did we break up? What happened? So, I just don't want everybody in my business, so I told my friend, I said, people won't know that I'm in a relationship until we 5 years into marriage. And, I'm about to be on my second child because I don't want everybody in my business. I don't want people popping up out the woodwork talking about, well, Megan this and Megan that, or, whoever I'm dating coming in my inbox talking about who I'm dating or whatever, because, people will hate with the quickness. So I'm very leery of what I post on social media, especially when it comes down to who I'm dating.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Megan. That relationship goals hashtag is probably my top 3 pet peeve currently. It's so the bar is here and the expectation is way below that bar. You'll see a picture of, I don't know, a random couple taking a mirror pic and people are like, "Oh my gosh, relationship goals." I'm like, what's the goal? Have you never taken a picture in a mirror? Or simple stuff as a guy opening the door, or just very bare minimum stuff that I'm like, why is that a goal? That is, to me, that's an expectation, just simple stuff like that. And yeah, I'm just, that whole hashtag, I could go on write a whole 5-page paper on that. And the other thing with social media, is that, like, I mean, I've been like a victim of this myself, not as like relationship, but like when that couple is in an argument or something, and then they, like blast each other on social media, and then it's like Megan said, everyone is in your business. And then it's like it looks weird to see them all like fighting on social media, doing this, that, and the other. But then like the next day they're back together. So it's kind of like a roller coaster type situation. And but that just goes along the lines of like too many people in your business. So I think if you are going to be in a relationship, I don't know, do what you please, post a picture here and there if you want, but don't be having full blown arguments out on Twitter and Facebook and all that other stuff.
I
Anybody
want to
else in
piggyback
that
on the
aspect?
whole.
Okay, B.
Oh, I'm good. All right. I just want to piggyback on the relationship goals thing, and like something a little similar is like how people they'll like have screenshots of, let's say, like tweets, or they might even like make bios themselves or something like that, where like they have like this crazy list of like high expectations that like they don't even meet, or like they make a list of like this perfect guy that, like, in my personal opinion, like that person probably like doesn't even deserve yet, because they're not there yet to even like maintain that type of guy that they want. And so it's just like it starts to become this thing of like longing for things that almost like don't exist, because it's not even taking in the idea that people even have like flaws that you're supposed to deal with. And the other thing too, this is just more so in regards to like the dating world in itself with social media. I think that whenever it comes to males, at least, since males are like heavily influenced by images, like whenever you're like on Instagram, you're seeing like these extremely, and even for women too, you're seeing like extremely high standards of beauty of like the opposite gender, as well as like of, the perfect portrayal of these people. And so it may end up, leaking over into the real world, to where you're a little more judgmental than you actually should be. And on the topic of people talking to each other, I really do think that as a result of social media, and all forms, honestly, they people just have a much harder time having actual real life discussion with people. They get more social anxiety. They don't know how to ask the questions that they actually want to ask. It's harder for them to connect, and they also have these weird expectations to like basically be texting someone every single day and just like wasting their own time, instead of just maybe going more so for like, let's say, walks, or like actually talking to each other in person. So I think it messes up the whole socialization aspect. And whenever people heavily build their relationship around social media, I think it's a lot weaker, because after a while it just becomes about keeping up the facade, because they don't want to look bad once the relationship falls through. And those are just a few of the negative impacts, in my opinion.
So that's more than a few. That's quite a bit. Anybody else? I got another question for this dating aspect, and let you have another comment from where we just were with the whole social media thing. Real quick, don't make it.
Yeah.
Y'all talk a long time.
Yeah, I wanted to say I completely agree with all of you. And I actually told my mom, like, I told her this more than once. I'm like, I kind of want my husband to meet me at my worst. Like, I want him to see me with like no makeup on, me looking bummed out, because I want him to see like me naturally at my kind of like my lowest point, so he can appreciate me then, so he can really appreciate me when I'm at my best, because I'm not trying to lure him in by lustful pictures, or by a personality that's not even mine, or even by relationship goals. But this is like an authentic, real relationship. Like at the end of the day, we're going to be the ones in this thing. And so that's why I think organically, if you're just yourself, and if you don't try to add up to what people's expectations are, then you'll be much better off, and your relationship will be much more healthy, because you're not trying to conform to the ways of this world. As Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the ways of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve God's perfect will. So I think that if we just don't conform and we're just organically ourselves, then you know, dating would be much easier.
Okay, so here's my question. Good segue with dating, because dating is such a broad topic, but we only got 5 minutes on this part. So dating versus dating people via the people that you know. Do y'all agree or disagree that dating might be a little bit easier if you meet people via your friends or family or good friends?
I would say especially if I'm very close friends with you and I trust your opinion or your recommendations, I would rather meet someone through friends or family than to like do online dating and stuff like that. I've tried it. Weirdos.
That was my next question, was about online. So don't nobody talk about online dating yet. Just through the people you know.
So yeah, I would personally rather, I would like to meet someone through people that I know.
Okay, because I asked that because I'll just give a little story. I can't, Megan, you know what? I haven't even told you this story. I probably can't, I'm not gonna give it all out on this one, but because I don't know if they're listening. But when you say people that you know, I'd have to say you got to be careful even with that, because I met someone through another friend, actually somebody that I was doing some work for, some contract work recently. So I've gotten to do a little more dating in this from the end of last year to now. But there's so many more details that go with this. But you need also, I guess, again, you need to set boundaries. You got to be transparent. You got to be truthful. But and that's basically what broke it off, because I asked the person a question and they would not answer the question. They actually kept going around in circles. And obviously, you guys know I'm much older than you guys are. But then the person that I was introduced to was much older than me. And when I say much older, was much older than me. And I couldn't figure out how low they were, except for I had to do some research. And that's how I kind of figured it out. But then when I asked the question of actually how old they were, I didn't get a good response with that. So I think when it comes down to dating, even when it goes down with, like we were talking about, with people that you know, you still got to be careful. Even when you go in that aspect. And so recently I just asked a friend, while I'm still traveling, I asked a friend on the road, I just asked her yesterday, I said, you know what, can your husband introduce me to somebody? Because I actually value her husband's opinion, hers and her husband. But I said, I don't want him to be your husband's age. I'm like, we need to go about 10 years younger than him. So has anybody dated anyone based on someone that they knew? Anybody? No?
Nah, it's just like, all right. So first of all, I just think it doesn't even matter, like if it's based on somebody you know or if you just meet them. To me, the only non-negotiable whatsoever is online dating. Like it is, in my opinion, I think most of the time it's just guaranteed to fail. Not because like the other person on the other end's bad, but because the connection that you get from online is a lot different than actual person to person interference, and you can't really always feel a vibe from a person online. But for me, most stuff has just been like, I don't know, random people or people that I've like met inside of classes, etc., or like going to like different events in the past. So I just think you just have to be open minded and socialize. It's all about who the person actually ends up being, and like screening for the right person, and also praying beforehand, like, oh God, should I talk to this person, or even as a friend, just to see how they are. So
Okay, so since he took us into this kind of with the dating and the online, oh, Megan, you had something to say.
Oh no,
I was going to comment though.
Going what you about to say. So go ahead and say what you're going to say, and then I'll.
What on the online dating?
Yes.
Oh, well, because I was going to say, since Derek kind of just segued us into online dating, I was going to say, what's wrong with that? Because of ChristianMingle.com and eHarmony, you can find your mates via online dating. I personally tried it, and that was just for the birds for me, and it just didn't work. So I'm like, well, Lord, I'll just wait on you.
I online dating is a to each his own type of thing. I can't say that you can't meet somebody. I wouldn't say that you can't meet somebody on online dating, because I have actually, since I moved to Dallas, I have met 10 plus couples at least that have met online. So, and that's whether it was an online dating site or just social media, period. But I personally wouldn't say that you can't have a connection through online dating, but people do manage to make ways to gain a connection outside of just over the internet. But online dating to me is really to each his own type of thing. Some people can make it work for them, and some people can't. I can't.
If you're just now tuning in, you are listening to Vital Statistics, our youth and young adult talk show. This is the latter half of our show. We were talking about the vague subject of love, sex, dating, and abstaining. Right now, we're talking about dating as from social media to dating via your family members, meeting somebody that they know and introducing you to them, all those wonderful aspects of dating. So we just were talking about online dating. So my question is, can Christians date online? Or should we truly take the pursuit? He that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. Guys?
I'd have to say that, you know, Christians can date online. You know, it's a possibility. You know, personally, I had a very brief stint when I tried the online dating thing, and it's just, you know, it's pretty much the same experience it was for you. It's like, okay, whatever. And I spoke with my mother about it, and she was like, you know, that's not something you want to do anyway. And she said, I believe that God will lead you to, you know, your wife. And I've just taken time to reflect on that. And the thing about God is, you know, it's the fact that he's a gentleman, you know, so he'll only do in your life what you permit for him to do. So even when we talk about, you know, asking God, you know, for the person intended for us, you know, whatsoever we ask for, we shall receive. That's something we have to consult him for daily. And more, I'm sorry, more and more I'm kind of convinced that there's, you know, almost no other way to do it. Because, you know, a lot of the relationships, you know, I've been in, sort of going back to actually meeting people in person. As I've mentioned before, you know, a lot of people have kind of been there and done that to the nth degree. So I've seen more individuals, especially in college, who are very defensive. You know, they aren't looking to get, you know, hurt again. So, you know, they'll either kind of play around or flirt with the idea of being serious about commitment, you know, or you know, they'll just you know, find an excuse to kind of terminate the connection altogether. But I just think that at the end of the day, you do you have to be discerning. And just because someone is noble in their character, you know, let's say someone you refer to, doesn't mean that y'all necessarily have the same kind of chemistry. So they might be a good person, but they may simply not be for you. So you just have to be thoughtful about every phase, you know, of the dating scene, regardless of what approach you take.
Okay, what about dating in the church? What do y'all think about that?
Oh.
Absolutely not.
Okay, talk about it.
I mean, just my church, personally, like, no.
No. Okay.
I mean,
okay.
I will say, when I have gone to other churches, because you know how churches, you know, they sometimes visit other churches, I'd be like, hey, my church personally, no. Like, I could not envision myself dating someone in my church. And they're like, what if it so happened to work and then we got married in the same church we grew up in? Like, no, that's too much. That's too much togetherness.
So dating in the church is out for you. D?
I mean, like, I think it's one of those to each his own things. It's doable. It is definitely doable. The lingering fear is kind of like, okay, so what if this happens, right? Or like, and then it doesn't work out, and now you got to see that person every Sunday for like however long you decide to live in that place. It's just like you should be cautious about it. Go about a respectable way. I don't know. I mean, I think it's doable. It's just there's risks involved. I don't not recommend it to anybody, man. I think it's cool for people who really can end up finding somebody there, because you know it's the church, and you're probably going to find people with you're more likely to find people with similar attributes to yourself, especially if it's a larger church. than if you just like went out searching inside just the regular pool of the world or just inside of just college or something. But I think it's doable. It's just a toss up. Like I have no opinion on it for the most part.
Megan, you have the stank face, so what's your opinion?
Well, I've had difficulties dating in the church. I mean, like he said, that's another one of those things that's to each his own. I've tried it, and I mean, unless you know for certain that this person like is from God and this is it, I would tread very lightly because it can become ugly. It has been, throughout churches where it's been incidents where things have gotten ugly and situations have arose and things have just been complicated and controversial. And so, like, if you're going to date, like you said, tread lightly, be very certain, be very cautious, and be very discerning. That's another one, because people in the church, everybody in the church ain't going in there with the right mindset, and people like to pray, and if you are weak and they know that you are weak, they will pray on you, because I've been there as well. So be very discerning and just pay very close attention.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I kind of had this saying that I shared with a friend a few weeks ago, but it just goes too much politics in our kinship and too much kinship in our politics. And when I say that, I just really mean that there are a lot of, even when it comes to, even in the church, you can have a lot of cliques, a lot of groups, and a lot of people who are committed to certain types of images, as far as how they present themselves in, church communities. There have been people who I've taken interest in, within, my own community, and sometimes it can lead to something fruitful. Other times you realize you're basically just talking to a mass, because everybody's trying to look like somebody who's higher up. And some people are more preoccupied, in all honesty, with the, whatever personal agendas they have, as opposed to really sincerely being involved in any sustainable relationship. So that was just really the 2 cents I'd like to input. I just think that there can be, so many ulterior motives woven even into, connections that you see within church-based communities. Even at my college, there were certain on-campus ministries, and you have to be discerning, even with them, because not everybody can really take you, especially when you're a genuine spirit. Some people can be very insecure. And some individuals can also, be very, judgmental to the point where, they kind of see who you are almost better than, yourself. And then, a lot of these, sort of bit of noise in the background, but that in-group mentality kicks in and people start forcing you out of their circles. So, like Megan was saying, I definitely agree with her where you have to be, discerning and just read people, because they're always reading you. Even people in the world can know who you are. So that's just my perspective on it.
Megan, did you have something to say? I saw your emotions while he was talking.
Oh, no. I was totally in agreement with the people in their ulterior motives, and, just trying to be something that they're not. And so, we do. And you have to be careful. I'm getting tongue twisted. You have to be careful of why people are trying to build relationship with you as well, which is also goes into discerning. Because when people see that you are anointed and you're gifted and you have purpose and God is elevating you and you are going somewhere, especially in the church, people try to attach themselves to you. And then all of a sudden you get this, well, God told me this and God said that you are. And, so you have to make sure that you are in a place where you are not making yourself susceptible to situations like that, where you are strong enough and confident enough in who you are and in your singleness, that when people come to you with that, you're not for it. because they will. They will surely come. Well, God said that you my husband. God said that you my wife. And if you are weak and you are desperate for a relationship, you will fall into that so quick. And before you know it, you will be caught up in something, and somebody will destroy everything that's in you for the fact that they're you know, they wanted to attach it to you. They saw you going somewhere, and so they wanted to go with you, and everybody can't go with you everywhere. So you really have to be careful of the relationships that, you know, that come in your direction. And that's not just dating relationships, that's any relationship.
That's deep. I mean, we could go down a long line just with that, and we're getting ready to close up the show, but I have two more questions that I'll eventually close up the show, but I'm gonna take these last two questions because I want to make sure that I get comments from y'all on this as well. But as we close up the dating in the church, I didn't hear anything from Sorrel. Did you have anything to say on that?
I was just thinking that, I mean, for me personally, I don't mind as long as the man is, you know, in God's plans for my life. So it doesn't really matter where. It's just a matter of using God's discernment, like they said, and provision, because sometimes we could just get so desperate and lonely that we will settle for anything that's in front of our face. But I believe that, like Megan was saying, it's good to be secure in who you really are so that you won't settle for that person and you won't be like, well, I was lonely yesterday. We can go out. You're a man of God or whatever. And people do tend to be more attracted to the Spirit because, I mean, the Holy Spirit is perfect. So it's like you have to be careful why somebody's really pursuing you or why you're pursuing someone. So I think it's important to use wisdom and provision when dating, period, as well as in the church.
Yes, sir. Well, I think that is great. And I'm going to end the show here. If you're listening to this is WSO Radio, our youth and young adult talk show, Vital Statistics. I'm your host, Shemetris Vital. And I've had joining with me in this conversation, D, J-Ha, Megan, Sorrel, and Josh. And we talked about a really big topic, but I think we hit some really good points here on this show, and I hope that they agree. I feel like there was some good things that were said just in the conversation, even though within an hour sometimes it's like you can't get everything touched on. But in this last hour, we were talking about just dating, because dating is obviously something that if you are not married, it's a word that you know, well, yeah, we'll just talk about it from the non-married perspective, that people are doing or they consider themselves to be doing, but there's just so many different titles for relationships and all this kind of stuff. But one of the things that I think, some of the things that I will take away from this conversation just with dating is, especially as Christians, is set yourself boundaries, be spirit-led, know exactly who you are and what you want, and make sure you have a strong relationship rooted and grounded with Christ at the center of it, because this is an ugly world and there's people out there. I think one of the things that was said that I think was really, really good is that you got to be careful of who is pursuing you and why they're pursuing a relationship with you. So if you don't have the full hat of discernment on, is to at least know who you are. Having that personal relationship with God will allow for you to maneuver through certain relationships, because you don't want to get caught in the wrong relationship because of your giftings and because of who you are and what God is doing. So you've heard it first right here on Vital Statistics. You'll hear the website and everything at the end of the prompt. We'd love to talk to you guys. Again, I'm going to do 2 more questions with them that hopefully we can share with you at a later time. And I'll just tell y'all my 2 questions so that they'll know, because I want to ask them this is, first and foremost, is for the men, do you think the pursuit is gone of he that finds a wife finds a good thing? Is that gone with the way that the world is moving today with social media and girls and women throwing themselves at you? And then another one, which this came from someone in the church, a little more seasoned than you guys, but I get a lot of things from more seasoned adults. And I mean, they're not that old, but some of the time they're older than you guys, 30, 40, 50. But they said sex, and these are Christians. Should you have sex with someone when you plan to have a long-term commitment with them? So we're going to talk about that just for a few minutes after the show. So Thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Okay, so I'm going to ask y'all those two questions because I think that they're really good ones. I probably can get at least a good 5 minutes or a spiel from you guys on that subject. So for the guys, I want you guys to answer that question first, and then the girls, y'all can come in and give your sense about it. But is the pursuit gone at this point of he that findeth the wife find the good thing, especially with having social media and the dating and all that kind of stuff? Do you think that it's gone? Is it still here? What?
In my belief, it's not gone, and God still has called men to actually go out and find good women, and I think it's a responsibility, and there also has to be a certain boldness to it as well, because God has called us to be bold. And in my opinion, like, even though there's still social media and all the other things, just if you just look at the stories that you hear, obviously, like, sometimes it works out for people, but there's like a very large percentage of time where people end up wasting their own time, and a lot of it could just be resolved by actually just going out and facing your own fears and being bold enough to take that step forward. And I think another reason for that too, that that the pursuit is not dead, is because whenever you're bold enough to get past your own anxieties or your own nervousness, I think it shows your own character, and it's something that the person can appreciate, even if you're just talking to them as a friend, honestly. And I I also think too, it's something that requires God's help more and His consultants as well, more so, because it's deliberate, targeted energy, as opposed to just like on Instagram or something. We can just mass message like 30 or 40 people within like a very short amount of time. But with this is like, okay, I want to talk to this person. God give me the courage, or like, God, should I talk to this person? And with that, you're actually building your relationship, and you're seeing like how this person treats people that they don't know off the bat, without like having a profile to back you up. And you're also like, just seeing what the chemistry is like off the bat, and there's like no ulterior motive, because they don't really even know anything about you yet. Whereas if it's on social media, they already have like this great little image of you, and they're like, oh, he does this, or she does XYZ, and they have the opportunity to make an ulterior motive or figure out how you are. But with the other thing, it's like it's just pure raw, up to chance. So I think that's better.
Okay.
I'd have to say that my take on this subject is, just more from observation of what I see in young men this day and age. The whole element of pursuit definitely hasn't been lost in today's culture, but there are some men, who genuinely pursue and who seek a good woman, and and then there are other men who prey on women. I think that it's a there's a duality to that whole aspect. So I just say, for the part of the women, that can be a challenge, because of course there's the whole issue with wondering exactly what an individual wants or what they're after when they approach you. Do they want something genuine and long lasting, or are they seeking to reap or to glean something from you? So yes, definitely, as scripture teaches, he says he that findeth a woman. So yes, it is our responsibility to pursue, women, but we also have to, of course, understand the nature of what we're after. Because if we don't have that, objective set into place before we initiate the search, everything else after that could be blown out of proportion and lead to a connection that's as destructive as the common relationships that you see in the world, Because as I've mentioned before, everybody has, different motives and stratagems, and, while some are more noble, and some people, of course, those who follow Christ, but some people, their wills and their wishes are in alignment with the will of God. Others, they have an entirely different motive, and they'll chase multiple women at the same time, just as much as they seem to be pursuing one particular person. So that's just how I see it, just from an observational aspect.
Okay. Ladies, do y'all have anything to say on that? I just wanted to get that out there. Do you feel that it's gone? Is it still around?
I think that it's kind of turned into he who finds a girl finds a good thing, because people, like guys in particular, are so like kind of lustful, and I know that bodies are nice and stuff, but it's like they're looking at the body and they're looking at if she can cook, if she can clean, and those are the traits that a woman should have. But ultimately, he who finds a wife is a Proverbs 31 woman, not just a girl. So I think that they've kind of taken the wife part out and just kind of replaced it with any girl that can cook and clean for him out here. But we need to get back to the wife part and looking and pursuing a Proverbs 31 woman. You know, she goes out early to get the food for her family, and she provides and she serves and she does all of these things that will be beneficial to the union and purpose. You know, we don't get married just to have sex. We get married to pursue purpose and a purposeful lifestyle with this mate. So I think that it's just kind of like we've taken wife and kind of replaced it with girl and anybody that is suitable for their standards rather than being a Proverbs 31 woman.
Okay.
So let's see. Where do I begin? I don't think that the art of pursuit is lost. I think that it is sort of diminishing in a way with the whole feminist movement, and you know, we've come across more passive aggressive men, and so you know, you see more women proposing to men now, and so you know, there are men that still pursue now. Like Josh was saying, you know, your mindset in why you're pursuing may not be in the right place, whether you're preying on her or, you know, whatever the case may be. But I do believe that the true genuineness of pursuit is sort of diminishing a little bit. And, you know, yeah, we have, you know, we have a lot of women who, you know, I'm equal to a man, you know, I could do this, I can do that. You ain't proposed to me yet, I'm gonna propose to you. Cause we, you know, it's just, we have to sort of take it back a notch.
I agree. That's good. Jay, how do you have any last comments on that? You're the last one.
I agree. Like like men still do pursue, but in my like personal experience, like man, especially where I'm from, you came to my school and had lunch with me. Like the boys in that area are just like very creepy. So like my experience hasn't been the best like since I've been in school, because like you approaching me or like pursuing me is not a yo ma. First of all, no, like that's not my name. Like ever, never was, never will be. Or like within like the first 10-15 minutes I have talked to someone, like the conversation and the topic is already on sex, and I'm like, what? Like things just go from like 0 to 100. So like talking, like even though we've only been talking for like an hour, like Josh and Dee have restored some of the faith in men. I'm like, okay, like they're out there somewhere, you know, just not clearly in Northwest DC. But so yeah, it's not gone, but it's diminishing. And with this younger generation, what is it? Is it Gen X? Z? I don't know what it is. Whatever X is, they need some work.
No, I think y'all are
I meant like people younger than me.
Oh, that's Gen Z.
Gen Z, yeah. They need some work. Because they're following us.
Okay. So my last question was, let's see. Oh, the sex question. Should you have sex with someone when you plan to make a long-term commitment or you plan to marry them?
No, you should.
Why not?
Because when you let sin in, then it destroys everything. Been there, done that. I have seen it happen. When you do things out of the order of God, if you plan on being in a long-term relationship with that person, then be in a long-term relationship. Go ahead, get married. Oh wait, it's the echo. Somebody's phone not muted. Go ahead, you know, get married, do what y'all plan on doing. But you know, I've seen people, for example, that you know that plan on being in a long-term relationship, so they'll go ahead and have sex, and before you know it, they're in their first, second, third child. You know, they 10 years into a relationship, and then out of nowhere, the person will be like, well, you know, we're not meant to be together. And then, you know, now y'all got 3 kids together. Y'all fighting over custody. You know, y'all fighting over whatever y'all fighting on, and y'all done moved on. Here, you done helped mold each other into whoever y'all done molded each other into. Y'all done spent all of this time together to not go anywhere. So it's like, if you plan on being in a long-term relationship with me and you see yourself marrying me, then we need to go ahead and get married and do what we need to do and stop playing on just playing and make this happen, because we not about to do things out of God's order. You're not about to get me in trouble.
Yeah, I'd like to go. Y'all hear me? Okay. Yeah, and say just to start off, I'd like to say that first and foremost, that is a good question, because you know people can easily fall victim to that whole idea that, you know, since we're about to go ahead and hook up and connect, it's okay to proceed with this, you know. And as Megan was saying, anything that you're going to start, you know, just work to go ahead and finish it. You know, whatever you're going to do, nothing is worth doing unless it's done right. So I do, you know, believe in the order of consistency and, you know, following through when it comes to marriage, and following that marriage with you know, a proper covenant under the will of Christ. And just, you know, coming from 2 parents who, you know, bottom line, actually, you know, they did do it before marriage, but, you know, that was an experience that they had learned from. You know, one thing that they were saying, from my mother in particular, that she regretted was just the fact that, you know, they hadn't quite, you know, waited. They, you know, they, of course, they're pardoned for their mistakes, but just them observing some of their peers, you know, colleagues who they knew in high school, following through and following faithful with that procedure all the way, you know, sort of, you know, pretty much, you know, made them long for, you know, following all the way through with that process. So of course, that's something that they wish, you know, for their children, you know, myself and my younger siblings, for the generation that follows them. And it's one of those things that are kind of a lesson learned. You know, Bishop actually just maybe a couple of weeks or so ago, he was preaching on how, you know, he was going to make his people, you know, jealous through, you know, the you know, miraculous things that he would do through the world, you know, through the Gentiles. And you kind of, I kind of observed the same element here. You know, it's just that jealousy that stems from, you know, just aspiring to do things the right way as other people have, and just seeing the beauty that comes with following through with a commitment to the all the way down to the bottom line. So that's all I really had to share.
Anybody else? Because this is about the end of that. I just want to make sure I got those 2 questions thrown in there, and I threw them in there because that one with the sex one, I get a lot of things from people who are more seasoned than I am, and being that, you know, have an organization called Why Not Wait, that usually ends up being the topic of conversation, that, you know, they're not young anymore, but then it's like, okay, men, and I'm like, men still do this even when you get older. Like, I could tell you guys some stories of things that I've just been told recently of people dating and then having sex with the individual as Christians, and then all of a sudden the relationship falters. Okay, somebody's not on mute. It's, oh, okay. I was gonna say I could hear myself talking twice. So that's why I threw that out there at you guys. And then also, I'm gonna throw this one in there too, but we're not gonna really talk about it. But I was just recently told about at a church, won't say what church, but I had someone call me and they said, you know, they gave the story. The people were, and so this is obviously things that need to be talked about. The people were actually somewhere between 45 and like 55. The lady needed somewhere to stay, so she stayed at this leader's house, and there was no attraction with them or whatever. He gave her his room so that there was, you know, no issue, and he slept on the couch. But what ended up happening was there was nothing that happened as far as the 2 of them, but she came out, she's like, obviously it wasn't late, and he's a leader, mind you, in the church. And she came out of the room, and guess what he was watching? He was watching porn. And so she confronted him as the leader, who was a single leader, but she confronted him. And we're talking about people that could be y'all's parents, almost, not Megan's, but could be your parents as leaders in the church. And we wouldn't want to be your parent, Megan. That'd be young. Anyway, but he was watching porn in his living room. And, you know, the question that was presented was it like 10 or 11 o'clock at night? And she was like, no, it was still kind of early, but I guess he thought I had retired. And he didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Mind you, he's a leader and he's watching porn and almost to the point of masturbation, but he's a leader. And when they had the conversation, he told her that there was nothing wrong with that, you know. And of course, after she's been talked to, was like, but what was his intent with watching porn? Was he planning on doing something to her? What was going to happen? But these situations are real. So not just only in the young adult life, but it's real and rampant within the everyday life of people who are not single, people who are trying to abstain from sex. But at least it's good listening to you guys' perspective of at least the things that you are trying to do and your pursuit to wholeness and staying committed. But it's going on in the church. And so that's why I kind of asked, because I've had 2 situations just recently that I was informed about as it related to sex. So since I've said it, what do y'all have to say?
Did no one tell them that was not appropriate in the first place for her to be staying at a male leader's house anyhow? Like
she didn't think that it was. She didn't think it was a problem since they were not, they were not, connected to each other or whatever.
That doesn't. No, because first of all, you open any door for Satan to come in, and he will come in, kill, steal, and destroy. I don't care if y'all are attracted or not. Like, you shouldn't even let your good be spoken evil of.
Right.
So to be staying at a male leader's house because you had nowhere to stay, like, him as a leader, he should have nipped that in the bud and said, nah, I can't do it. Let's find you a female's house to stay at, but you will not be staying at mine. Secondly, he should know better. But they were both wrong. And
right. But I'm going to say this. I don't know if I had ever told you this story, but just so I can throw this out here. And I mean, obviously now being more mature, I do understand it. But I actually, and this is not my story, but I'm going to tell you my story as it relates to like the staying at the leader's house. I have a friend who is actually a pastor. He is a youth pastor at a well-known church in Dallas. And this was now over probably 10 to 12 years ago. 2006. So that's well over 12. Yeah. Going on 13 years ago. So I'm 39 minus. Yeah. So I was about 26 years old, and I ended up staying at my friend's house. He was a youth pastor at the time, and he gave me, so it was kind of, as I listened to the story, I was like, wow, that's really interesting. But my friend was probably a little more respectful because he let me stay at the house. He gave me his bedroom because he was a 1-bedroom apartment. He gave me his bedroom. He stayed on the couch. Now by day 2, I found out he was attracted to me, but he was like, man, Shemetris, I can't do this anymore. He said, I'm going to let you stay here. He gave me the key because I stayed a week because of circumstances and things that was going on. But he went and stayed at a friend's house. So he had a little more respect and I guess honor maybe than this seasoned guy did. Because my friend, I think we're about 3 years apart. So I might have been 25, 26, and he might have been 23 or 24. And I understand what you're saying, Megan. Yeah, you don't let your good be spoken of. Did I say it right? Evil spoken of. God, y'all know what I'm trying to say.
Spoken evil of. Yeah.
Your what?
Don't allow your good to be evil spoken of.
Speaking of, yes. Okay, so that I can't, it's like a tongue twister for me. But I know now that it's not something that you should do. But I have been in that situation before myself. But luckily, the pastor that I was with, youth pastor, he was more respectable. And we know that it's not the right thing to do, but we don't know everybody's situation, either. But anyway, as of anything that I said, anybody had anything else to say on any of that?
I just have really some closing comments. I think that overall this was a really great and productive discussion. I say particularly when it comes to the subject of pornography, that's a major issue, and it touches heavily on pretty much everybody, particularly between that teens to 20s range. And I just think that there are a lot of individuals, especially young men, like myself, who, you know, as far as, you know, character-wise, how we conduct ourselves, we may be good and very much, you know, well-behaved in a lot of areas, but, you know, sexual temptation can be a major challenge for us, you know, more than we're willing to admit. So I think even with having this talk and with us really coming out and being transparent, you know, I'd like to commend everybody on the panel for simply taking those bold steps towards, you know, being honest about honest issues. And that's all I've got.
Any other final closing comments, just as it related to the things that I said, or anything that you wanted to say? I mean, Megan, you told us, no, you don't do that. You don't go to somebody's house. You don't do that. So, of course, we understand that aspect of it. Surreal?
I completely agree. I think like you couldn't find the local hotel or something. Like nothing was, nowhere else you could have gone. So it's just kind of like, even though he didn't do anything to her, it was kind of making room for the enemy to come in, because I know that, like, with my personal self, I know my weaknesses and I know my boundaries. And so if I were to put myself in that position, especially if the guy looked good, like, you know, I'm not going to put myself in that place. So, I mean, I think there's wisdom in it to know what you should not be doing. And I think that having sex, like with a long-term commitment type of thing, I don't agree with that either, because I know somebody actually really close to me that did that, and they are going through some serious issues right now that they can't really deal with. Like, they're really struggling. And so it's really kind of sad to see. So that's why it's important to get that foundation, like a holy foundation and a righteous foundation, so that you won't be struggling, basically, because it's, you know, it could get really, really ugly really quick. And the person that I was telling you guys about earlier that commented on the video I did about pornography, they said that, I just forgot. I'm so tired. Sorry. They commented that when they were addicted, you know, they did it at night because, you know, like in the comfort of their own home. And that's pretty much why anybody is addicted to pornography and masturbation, because I think that we get lonely and that we feel like this is our only satisfaction, because we might as well go to porn with people that we don't know rather than have sex with somebody that could potentially break your heart. So I think that with porn and masturbation in particular, it's like you have to find a love and a security in your heart, because when I was addicted, I was so insecure. I hated myself, and I didn't know my purpose on earth. I was just a broken individual. And it was that point when I was like, oh, like, I'm on earth for a reason. Like, oh, I'm really worth something, is when I had to stop watching it. Because in my video, I mentioned that we all know that there's something wrong with porn and masturbation. Like, whether you admit it or not, we all feel that thing deep down, like this something weird with this. Like, there's just something odd about it. And I think that we're a lot smarter and more self-aware than that we believe we are. And that's why I think we have to take the right precautions and follow that spirit, because ultimately it's the Holy Spirit telling you, like, you know, that's not the right thing to be doing. And just, you know, fight our flesh and, you know, follow that fruit of the Spirit, being self-control. So, yeah.
Well, very good. You summed it all up. So, in that aspect, I guess we're done. And I appreciate y'all hanging in with me on the rest of that, just getting that question answered. I look forward to other opportunities as God would allow, just for me to bring y'all back on this year with some of our wonderful conversations. And I ask if the Lord leads you to something, an idea that you think should be talked about here on the radio, please, y'all have my phone number. Text it to me, because I would love to be able to talk about it. If you got friends that you want me to interview or you like for me to talk to, I would love that as well, because I have to do this on a weekly basis. So this is year 4 of this radio ministry that I am, you know, doing, but I would definitely love for y'all's help in that aspect of anybody. Derek, I would love to, talk with any of you guys and some of your friends, because there's so many topics. It doesn't have to be this, love, sex, dating. It could be anything from the, I think this flux of the KKK now that's coming out. All kinds of things is going on just in the world, especially out here where I'm at right now. That's become a big deal. So please, if you get anything, Jai and Cyril have joined me as co-hosts for this year. And yeah, so that's all I got to say is if you got something else that you want to talk about, please hit me up, send me a text or whatever. I appreciate your time, the wisdom and everything that God has poured into y'all at this point. Continuing to pray for y'all that God would do exceedingly abundantly above all that you could ask or think in this season of your life. Derek, Jai, Megan, Cyril, and Josh, as well as Michael. So I appreciate you guys. So that's my spiel. I love y'all. I'm praying for you. We prayed before we started, so I don't have to pray out. I just wish y'all well and blessings. Jai, you unmuted. Did you have something to say?
No, I just saw everyone else unmuted.
Oh, anybody had anything to say? Because I'm gonna turn y'all off.
Nope. Love you.
Wakanda forever.
Did you say what?
Wakanda forever.
All right.
Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever.
Wait, let me take a picture of that. Hold on, y'all do. Wait, hold on. Everybody do. I'm going to take a picture of it.
I can't do
Come
it.
on, Black Panthers.
Okay, just do one.
I look handicapped.
I have to do it too. All right. Wonderful.
Yay.
I will get y'all sent the tape. This will not air until the last Wednesday of March.
All right.
So that's when it'll air, but I'll get a flyer put together, and then nobody had any problems receiving the audios, right? Everybody got the audios for both the guys and the girls?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't have any problems. If you chose to listen to them, you can put them on your site, whatever you want to do with them.
Cool.
Okay.
So you can do that. I mean, it's a national radio show, so it's out there. A lot of our listeners come from Africa, so you never know.
That's so cool.
Yes, a lot of them. Lots of them are overseas that listen to this station, and that's usually where I get comments and stuff from. First and foremost is from overseas, because they hear it during the day. So it's kind of the gospel station. They get to hear these conversations during the day on their way to work, but that's where I get things from. So all glory to God. I love y'all. To everybody.
Love you.
All right.